Good morning. Good morning. And I will continue to monitor the chat box as we go ahead and get started. We are recording this presentation just to be able to pass it off to folks who weren't able to join us this morning or who would like to listen in again. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you all for joining us this morning. I know it's a busy season with harvest happening right now all across the state of Iowa. But if you're here to learn about land access, you are certainly in the right place. With that, my name is Cynthia Farmer. I am with the Center for Rural Affairs, and I joined the team here in 2023. I currently serve as a policy manager here in Iowa, and I'm based in our Nevada, Iowa office just east of Ames. I grew up on my family's dairy farm in Northeast Iowa, and that's where I joined and got my interest and curiosity in the agriculture industry um, growing up there. And so now I get to advocate alongside farmers who are working to feed themselves and the growing population, but also caring for the environment and the rural communities that folks are involved with. So outside of my work, you can find me gardening or putting together puzzles or even cheering on the Iowa State Cyclones. Those are some of my fun things that I like to do. Also on the webinar today, we have Martha McFarland. She is with the Practical Farmers of Iowa. Martha joined the PFI staff in 2022 as the Senior Farmland Viability Coordinator. In her role, she supports land seekers, landowners with land access and farm transition assistance and resources. Martha has been a farmer member of PFI since 2014 and runs Hawkeye Buffalo and Cattle Ranch near Fredericksburg, Iowa, where she manages on woods and pasture, raising oats and soybeans, and she works with a tenant farmer who raises those corn and soybeans. Her experiences with her farm's transition, her love of the Iowa landscape inspired her to help the next generation of farmers and landowners. Um, Before running the ranch, Martha spent 10 years working in education and mentoring beginning teachers. Correct me there, beginning teachers. In her free time, Martha also loves yoga, writing, early morning coffee on the back porch, and traveling to new cities to explore new restaurants. And finally, we also have, but certainly not least, we have Christiana Kutu with the Iowa State University Beginning Farmer Center. Christiana is the director of the Iowa State University Beginning Farmer Center, which provides educational resources for new farmers and farm succession planning. The center also hosts AgLink, which is a virtual platform created to help beginning farmers connect with established and retiring farmers, engage in meaningful conversations, and explore farming opportunities. Christiana is an attorney and a CPA, bringing legal and tax expertise to her work from a practical perspective. She brings years of experience working with farmers and agricultural organizations across the country, including lending for the Farm Credit System, practicing as a CPA, practicing law, and engaging in policy work. Christiana was the fourth generation to operate her family's dairy farm and in Connecticut, and that farm is no longer in operation, but she does continue to farm with her husband on their diversified small farm in Michigan. So those are the folks that we have speaking on our panel today. And with that, we will go ahead and jump to the next slide. So to officially get us started, I have a poll for you all to get to know you a little bit better. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. And if you would, please go ahead and fill it out. There, it should be launched now. Fill it out just so that we can set the scene a little bit better today and get to know you all as participants so we can direct the conversation a little bit better that way. So I'll give a few moments for folks to fill out that poll. And if you're just joining us, as a couple folks are, we are filling out a poll right now to help the presenters get a better understanding of who you are, where you're coming from, and set the scene a little bit for our webinar. Got a couple more folks who I have not submitted based on my percentage. But to keep things rolling, I will end the poll now and we will go ahead and present these results. So if you're curious, we have about a third of the folks online are a beginning farmer, about 20% of folks are landowners, and the rest, over half, which these can be combined, are just interested in land access. I guess a third of the folks are less than familiar with the land access programs and our land transfer options in Iowa. And then we have quite a mix of the type of farmers and landowners in the group. So good things to keep the conversation rolling. I will stop sharing that and we will keep on rolling. So before we get started, I like to just go over an agenda and some goals to kind of set the scene a little bit for this presentation so you know what you're getting yourself into. So with that, I will provide an overview of the Center for Rural Affairs and one of the land transfer programs out there known as the Conservation Reserve Program, Transition Incentives Program, and I'll get into the weeds there. Martha will talk about PFI and their land access resources that they have, including the farmland access navigators that they have available to you all. And then Christiana will speak to the Beginning Farmer Center and their resources in addition to the AgLink program. So hopefully with that, we're increasing your awareness to these three different programs and the organizations that fit in with them. But the biggest components are just to connect with these experts that we have in the field and also kickstart planning, whether you're a beginning farmer or a landowner. It's always good to be thinking ahead through just the nature of the world that we're living in. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat box. We don't have the Q&A function for this webinar right now, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. So into the meat of the presentation, the first organization is with the Center for Rural Affairs that I wanted to highlight. That's who's sponsoring this webinar, and just wanted to share a little bit about what's happening on our end of things. So we are a nonprofit that was formed over 50 years ago in Nebraska. And I'll show a map shortly of where we currently work at. But we've been standing up for family farmers and ranchers and new business owners for that over 50 years now. And so we work to engage people and helping them shape the future of the communities that they live in. And our mission statement, we actually just updated it. Our board just approved it not that long ago, but cultivating strong communities rooted in social and economic justice, environmental stewardship, and an opportunity for all. And so I bolded those things that I think are the most important as we're focused on this webinar today. Here's the map of where we work. Like I said, we were started over 50 years ago in Nebraska, but we've been in Iowa we celebrated our 10-year anniversary earlier this year. And so we have an office here in Nevada. That's where I live and work. And then we also have a couple staff in South Dakota and Minnesota. But we do focus on these state issues. And then we also have a wider lens where we're focusing on federal ag and conservation programs in addition to anything that supports rural communities. I have to throw this in here, this webinar is funded through a USDA Farm Service Agency cooperative agreement that we have with them. So that's where this webinar is being presented from. So as I introduce the big, long, lengthy program, I'll refer to it as CRP-TIP. If you're not familiar, it's the Conservation Reserve Program, Transition Incentives Program. So Unfortunately, at the start of the webinar, I have to put in a caveat that signups for CRP-TIP were not and have not yet been authorized for FY25. And so knowing that, it's kind of unfortunate that I have to like present it this way, but there's a chance that the program will be authorized moving forward. And so it's more for awareness and providing an opportunity for landowners if this would fit a niche option. So we know that 150,000 acres of CRP came up for expiration in 2025, and there's another 300,000 acres of CRP coming up for expiration in 2026 alone. And so knowing that, these acres obviously are in CRP for a reason, but we want to ensure folks are taking an opportunity if you're not eligible for re-enrollment when your acres come up for, if you're a landowner that does have CRP in operation. So with that, on the slide, I've noted that the program is administered by the USDA Farm Service Agency, and the whole gist behind the program is to incentivize land transfer to an underserved or a beginning veteran farmer who returns that land with conservation in mind. And so the financial incentive then is you, as the landowner, would receive 2 additional CRP payments. And I'll get into the eligibility and the criteria in just a moment. But it emphasizes that continuation of conservation due to the land potentially being highly erodible, that sort of thing, as you're looking at what that production looks like on the land moving forward. With that, it also requires a sale of the land or a long-term lease. So it truly is looking at transitioning that land to someone who is underserved, maybe a beginning farmer or a veteran farmer. Here's the eligibility requirements. So like I mentioned, the landowner does have to work with one of these 3 different categories. The beginning farmer has to have less than 10 years of experience. It could be a socially disadvantaged farmer. All of the different ethnicities are listed there. And then it could also be a veteran farmer, so someone with veteran experience who has less than 10 years of farming experience. And so all of these things would be categorized under the FSA 860 form. So if you're looking at potentially interest in this, if you have CRP coming up for expiration, this would be something that it's a pretty niche thing. If you have to locally, you have to find that person that matches these different qualifications. And I have noted there at the bottom, gender is not a qualifying criterion, but you also cannot be a family member, an immediate family member for this land transition. So it has to be one of those other 3 categories for eligibility. So here are kind of the steps for how you would approach the process. So if you're a landowner that has CRP coming up for expiration, you would submit your application through your local FSA office. And I have some dates listed there for reference. So if you have a CRP contract coming up for expiration next year in 2026, you're already a year into where you could have been talking to the FSA office, but you have plenty of time to identify that landowner the new operator that you want to work with and take a look at if your acres are potentially eligible and kind of go through that process with the local FSA office. To make things official, you would then identify that person, work through the contract and the application process by providing some written approval of you're going to have a long-term lease with that person, or you would have the sale of the land to the new operator, which typically the lease is the more preferable option that happens. But then once that approval is granted, you would have those 2 years of additional payments. And so on a 10-year contract, which is typical, you would then get 12 payments of that CRP contract. So you would get, like, as they explained, you would have 2 additional years of those payments. And so depending on where you live, then that 3rd bullet point, the new operator, once the contract is approved through FSA, that new operator can actually start making changes to the land if they need to. So we know that CRP, it's in CRP for a reason, and it's been set aside for 10 years, more than likely. If you're putting it into pasture for grazing, you might need to update the fencing. Maybe if you have livestock or different cattle out there. You might need some watering facilities. So that at that point, once that contract is approved, the new operator can start working on site preparation, those sort of things. Maybe you're going to more of the food production landscape and you need some different facilities and site preparation. You're more than welcome to do that, but it has to be after the contract is approved by FSA. And then finally, that bullet point down there with conservation in mind, the land may also be eligible for other USDA programs. So I always encourage folks to double check that with their local FSA office because there are some other incentives financially that could be brought onto the land there too. So in general, that's the nitty gritty of what CRP-TIP is. We are hoping that this helped increase your awareness of the program. If you're a landowner or someone that has a CRP contract, this is just an opportunity. It's pretty niche, but for your CRP expiring acres. And so while you're providing land access to beginning farmers or ranchers or veteran farmers or socially disadvantaged folks, you're also continuing a legacy of conservation on that land. And so as we transition to the next speaker, I'm going to drop a couple success stories that I have chatted with folks about into the chat. So feel free to click on those links. But I'm going to transfer it over to Martha with PFI, and she is going to discuss her programs that they have available for land access.
It helps not to be muted. Thank you so much, Cynthia. As she just was mentioning, my name is Martha McFarland. I live up in Northeast Iowa, and I work remotely for Practical Farmers of Iowa, which is based in Ames, Iowa. And you can go ahead and advance the screen. So for those of you who may not know much about Practical Farmers of Iowa, it is a nonprofit organization, independent. There is only a Practical Farmers of Iowa. It was founded in 1985 by a group of farmers who were seeking to reduce their nitrogen rate through field trials. And this group of farmers has grown. Today, it's a diverse mix of about 8,000 farmers, mostly in Iowa, but we are in surrounding states as well, who raise row crops, who do horticulture, orchardists, livestock producers. As Cynthia mentioned in my bio, I was a farmer member before I started working for PFI. Our guiding principles are really focused on curiosity, on farmer-led education, farmer-led research trials. We have free field days to anyone who might be interested in them, an annual conference in January held in Des Moines, and we can go ahead and advance the slides from here. So PFI is divided into these three groups. The farmer-led education is field days and conferences. We gather as farmers in December for decisions made on what kind of research trials will be happening. And then I'm housed in the Farm Viability Department. So this is really focused on one-on-one help that we can provide for farmers to help them grow their business. This involves cost share programming for cover crops, small grains, horticulture, for grazing. And a lot of times we can stack those payments with FSA payments. So it's worth noting if you have any interest in that. And then we also provide that technical assistance, that one-on-one consults to really just help you start to figure out what you want to do specific to your farm. We can advance. So before we get started talking about what PFI can do in the realm of accessing land and making connections between farmers seeking land or landowners, is I just want everyone to know that you are not alone. If it feels so hard, it really is. It's worth noting that the National Young Farmers Coalition has listed access to land as the #1 barrier for all beginning farmers. And here in the Midwest, we have some of the very highest farmland values in the entire country. The statistics in the Midwest vary a little bit from state to state, but I think it was in 2022 that the only 2 states in the country that were higher than Iowa for cropland value were California and New Jersey. So it really is challenging to try to purchase land. And you can go ahead and advance the slides here. I think it's also worth noting, and these statistics reflect that in 1982, only about 30% of farmland was owned by people 65 years or older. Today, as we have increased prices of land, it becomes really hard to convince a bank to loan you some money if you don't already have farmland. I think that's a huge part of the challenges that beginning farmers face. Today, we're looking at about 70% of farmland is owned here in Iowa. About 70% are 65 years old or older. And we can go ahead and advance. So knowing these statistics and talking about the Young Farmers Coalition nationally, our own member surveys were really reflecting very similar things. So beginning farmers were listing access to land as their number one barrier, their number one challenge to getting started. And that was really why my role was created about 3 years ago at PFI. So we help farmers, land seekers, landowners, retiring farmers in a variety of ways. The first is just that one-on-one consult. Really, it might just be one phone call for someone who's trying to figure out what their rental rate should be, or what are some tips for getting started in their farm transition. You're welcome always just to give us a call, whether you're a member or not. And we're here to provide as many resources as we can for you, help connect you in different ways. We also have a program called the Farmland Access Navigators. So this program is part of a larger network of Midwestern states called the Farmland Access Hub that is run by Renewing the Countryside. And this is connecting you with myself or with 3 other PFI members who have experience and training in helping people connect land or making land matches. And this is really designed to be more coaching over time that can help people and basically on their land access journey.
Let me check.
So an example of this might be aspiring farmer who knows they want to get started farming, but they're just not quite sure even what they should do next. This might be someone who's already farming and is looking for more land or to transition from a rental to maybe buy some land. And we also work with landowners who know that they would love to help out a beginning farmer, or they're looking and seeking someone. It seems like lately I'm getting a lot of people who already have an organic farm and they're seeking a new organic producer for their land. Or maybe they have 10 acres in town or a greenhouse. Or they're that retiring farmer who knows that they know who they want to transition the farm to, but they're not sure how they want to get started. I think one of the very best things about having a navigator working with you is this is designed to help you over time. With one phone conversation, I might be able to send you an email that lists 10 or 12 or 13 different resources and tips and tricks that you can do along the way. But that can be a lot. And the advantage to working with a navigator is that it really gives you what you need when you need it. And then that check-in a month later to kind of help you along the way. And in this program, we also have an internal list of people that we've been working with. So if you're one of those retiring farmers who calls and is seeking a beginning farmer, we can look through our list internally and see if we might have a match. And if you're a beginning farmer, we can look through the list and see if we have some landowners or retiring farmers who are interested. And I should also mention that this retiring farmer, you might be looking for a land sale or a lease. Our goal would also be to connect retiring farmers with someone that they want to work with, someone who's a beginning farmer who doesn't have that experience. If you want to keep farming, but you're hoping to have sort of an heir apparent who is not part of your family moving forward. Also, as part of the Farmland Access Navigator program, we can provide help and support once you've made that match. So if you know that you're ready to get going, but you need to know, oh my gosh, when you rent out land for vegetable production, like what are the pieces that should be included in a lease? Or what are the things we really need to make sure we include in agreement for a land sale if we're doing something on contract? And then we also can meet with you regularly as a paired group if you are interested in just sort of having someone to help ask those tricky questions as you begin navigating that relationship between tenant and landowner, or retiring farmer and beginning farmer. And then finally, what we have here at PFI is land matching. So a land link site, and we're going to go ahead and advance the screen here, Cynthia. So in 2014, Practical Farmers of Iowa launched a separate website that was not part of PFI's website called Find a Farmer. So this was a land linking website that was designed for land seekers to create a profile, or people who have land to create a profile, a match.com, if you will, for people seeking to make that connection. One of the challenges that we found at Practical Farmers was that because this was a separate website, we didn't have funding just written into different grants to make sure we were making updates along the way. And even as we were making some of those updates, because the site was so old, it was getting more and more glitchy along the way. And we also had some lessons learned that helped us create and launch something new that we'll be doing in the coming weeks. So in the interim between 2014 and 2025, Christiana is going to talk a little bit about ISU's land linking website. And because of that, also, we wanted to create something that was a little different from what we had, because we don't want to be competing sites or worrying about how many different sites you want to be on. And you can go ahead and move the screen forward. So for what PFI is going to be doing moving forward is August 1st, we shut down the Find a Farmer site. And now at PFI's website, we're going to have a land matching page. And on that land matching page, it's going to just be a really simple form. Or I shouldn't say a simple form, but it's going to simplify the process of having to create your own biography or figure out what you need to say. If you have land, we have different questions that we're going to ask you. Some of those questions will be published publicly so people can see on the land, but we won't publish any like contact information or the address of your farm. We're looking for that information just so we have that contact information with you. And then I will be reviewing those listings once a month, and then I will be posting those on our PFI site. So it's just going to be a list of land. It's going to be super simplified in that way so that anybody who happens to come across PFI's website can see the land that's available. And then if you are someone who is seeking land and you want to connect with the landowner of a specific listing, then you'll reach out to that landowner with another series of questions. And we've tried to tailor this to really help give information that will be helpful for both of you to increase the potential of like effective matching. We don't want just anybody saying, oh, great, I think this looks cool, and then sort of falling by the wayside, but instead the land seekers will get a chance to talk a little bit about their experience farming, about why they think that land is a good fit for them. And I think actually, Cynthia, I should have said advance the screen. We'll see a few of those questions here. These questions were created actually as part of a farmer-led committee a couple of years ago as PFI was considering land donations and then how PFI might start to make decisions on who would be renting that land. The committee was really conscious of the idea that anybody might be able to write a great business plan, and or it might be really challenging for someone to write a business plan, and we wanted to ask the types of questions that would show a landowner what those experiences were of that farmer, while not raising the bar too high to make it too challenging for someone who's really good at farming, but might not be the very best at writing the prettiest business plan. So this is up and coming. It's really new for us. As I said, we've just closed down Find a Farmer August 1st. This is designed, like I said, to kind of dovetail with what Christiana is going to be talking about and what their website does. But I very much welcome feedback because this is brand new for us. So please try it out. I didn't say this earlier, but land listings will be posted once a month. So you'll submit to me and then I'll be going through everything. And then once a month, we'll post a new round. And of course, we'll keep everything up for at least a year and then reach out to you if your listing has been up for a year and we haven't heard from you, just to make sure that land listings are current on our site. And with that, I think I just wanted to leave everyone with a few tips. Um, some of these feel, I guess, pretty straightforward, but really consistently, whether you are seeking land or if you are a landowner, these are the important things to figure out as you move forward. Really getting a feel for what you have to offer, I think, is really important if you are a landowner. So many landowners know that they're flexible and that they could do a lot of different things. But I want to share that the more you can package what you have to offer, the easier it is for a beginning farmer to know if it's going to be a good fit for them or not. When you know that there are lots of possibilities, but you're not quite sure what those possibilities are, it can be really hard to convince a land seeker that this might be a good fit for them. Also, a price point is so important, and I know that that is also one of the most challenging things to figure out. Setting a price point and then knowing there might be some wiggle room as a landowner is excellent, because I've worked where I've made connections before with someone who knew that money was not the most important thing to this landowner, but at the end of the day, that landowner still may need to pay for retirement. That retiring farmer may need to figure out, how they're going to buy groceries. And once you figure out that price point, then you can make a successful connection with someone who knows what they can afford to pay for rent or for purchase, given whatever their business is bringing in. And then, of course, this seems kind of a given, but thinking really about your values and what's most important to you in the mix. What type of farming, for landowners, what type of farming are you really excited about on your land, and what type of farming is just not going to work for you? And then if there is one piece of advice that I could give all of you land seeking or looking for that land connection with a farmer, it's so easy, but tell everyone you know. What's been really hard and really challenging for me in this role is that I may have some land up in northwestern Iowa that is the perfect fit for a beginning farmer who's located in central Iowa. But because of their family ties or because they've already got an established business with markets, they're not able to move. And so quite often, a lot of the ways that our clients make connections is just locally by really getting the word out. Sometimes, I know that it can feel like if you have land, there are vultures circling, ready to like pounce, anxious to get more land. And so people can try to keep that closer. But I think that if you can be really clear about, this is what I'm looking for, this is the type of farmer I want, this is the kind of goals and values that drive what I'm looking for, and you tell everyone you know about it, tell people at church, tell people at the gas station, put out an advertisement in your local newspaper. Those are the ways that you can really make the very best connections with someone you might not even know was in your community who shared those same values and was interested. We also have an email discussion list for members at PFI, so we can post on that. Very much, we want you to post on ISU site, as we'll be hearing about shortly. And then another great place to check in is your NRCS or FSA office. And again, that's making those local connections with people who might know people. And then if you don't happen to post on our land listing sites, I would also be happy to share those questions with you so that you can really start to better understand the farmer that you might be working with, asking them questions about their experience, their production practices to make sure that aligns and that you'll be happy with the connection you make moving forward. And with that, I am excited to get to hear a little bit more about Christiana and the Beginning Farmer Center and the LandLink program there.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you, Cynthia, as well for the introduction. Again, I'm Christiana Kutu, and I'm the director of the Beginning Farmer Center at Iowa State University. I joined Iowa State just around a year ago now. It was last fall, and before that time, I did a bunch of other things, but all involved with agriculture, either as a farmer myself or in other ways that we're supporting producers. And so I was very excited, and I still am, to be part of the Beginning Farmer Center and do this work that means a lot to me from a lot of different angles. Um, Oh, we can go ahead and advance the slide. I'm thinking I could do it. So just a little bit about the Beginning Farmer Center history and how we came about. So it was created in 1994, and the idea really came from legislators and other folks that were involved in extension and working with farmers, understanding that there were unique challenges that beginning farmers were facing, and those challenges weren't getting less as the years were going on. They were actually getting more. And so the idea came up. The idea was presented to basically have a center that focused exclusively on those needs and trying to assist and help with resources that could provide beginning farmers with ideas of how to overcome some of those challenges. And so that is how the Beginning Farmer Center came about, and that's what we continue to do today. I'm going to share on the next few slides, and actually we could go ahead to the next slide, Cynthia, if you don't mind. So, I'll back up a little bit before I get into the resources, because what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit more here about some of the background, but then I'm going to show you some screenshots basically of our website to point you and talk through some of the resources that we have been developing and accumulating on our website, and then spend the most of the time talking about the LandLink program that we're running with AgLink, which is the online platform designed to basically match up land seekers and folks who are looking for land seekers who already have land. So the basic objectives, the primary goals of the Beginning Farmer Center are assess the needs of Iowa beginning farmers and retiring farmers, and we do that in a number of ways. We've done it through some surveys. Obviously we know some of the stats like Martha shared before, and those honestly are reflected in the phone calls that we get and the questions that we have. And so that's how we are constantly trying to adjust to the needs that are out there and make sure that we're truly providing resources that help with that. We are a research, we're part of the university, and so our goal is to provide programs, resources, educational materials in that way. We often get calls with folks wondering, do we provide financial assistance, or do we have programs that are grant programs or other through the Beginning Farmer Center? And no, that's not what we do. Our niche or our goal is to provide those educational resources and also to connect beginning farmers and aspiring farmers with other people who are doing the good work and may have additional things that they provide beyond what we do. Okay, we could go ahead to the next slide. So this is just a snapshot. I was trying to fit it on one page and have it a little bit readable of what we have on our website for some resources that we have. So we support beginning farmers and resources for beginning farmers, but then we also have a focus on outgoing farmers and providing resources and education in the form of conferences, in the form of written materials as well, for farmers who are wanting to retire or exit from farming in coming years, and how do they transition that farm to the next generation, while also making sure that their goals and their needs for retirement are met, because we really do have, it's really a full picture when we think about beginning farmers being able to access land, especially if it's accessing in a way that it's being, that a business or land is being transitioned from someone else who is actively farming. And it can be family members or it might not be family members. We see both. It's so important. This is also often where, you have to put the puzzle pieces together to figure out how are everybody's needs going to be met with this situation, because we have exiting farmers who need to have, financial security and retirement needs and other needs met as well. And then we have beginning farmers or aspiring farmers that we know that agriculture, is risky. It's inherently risky as a business just because we're dependent on things things like weather and other variables that we can't control. So how do we make sure also that beginning farmers and aspiring farmers are in a place that when they enter a business or they purchase land, that they are in a spot financially where they can be successful and they're not so hamstrung from the beginning and loaded with debt that it's difficult to make the choices and to actually succeed in farming in the long term. We know getting into farming is really tough, and especially in the first 5 years. And so the goal is not just to have beginning farmers start, but have beginning farmers then become those farmers who are also thinking about then transferring, transitioning to the next generation, family or not, in future years. And so one of the resources that we have that's been, I think, very helpful from the succession planning standpoint is we have a farm succession workbook, which the link to it is right on the screen there. And if you go to our website, you can actually download a PDF of that book for no charge. You can also get a actual physical copy as well, and there is a charge for that, but the information is accessible for you there. We also link to other resources that aren't necessarily created by us, but that we try to curate it so that these would be things that would be useful for other beginning farmers, regardless of the stage that we're at. Because like Martha mentioned, we also get calls that are kind of all over the board. It may be someone who has access to a small amount of land and they're really just trying to figure out what's the best way to use that. But typically, it's someone who either has an idea and does not have access to land or is searching for that, or it might be a aspiring farmer who is trying to determine how they could best fit into their family operation and what do they bring to the table and how would that work so everyone can be successful. So that's what some of these other resources are there. Farm business management links to those resources. Small farms links to some of the more of the specialty crops and the direct-to-consumer type of farming that a lot of folks are interested in. We also have links. So I'm kind of in a dual role. I'm director of the Beginning Farmer Center, which is housed with an extension at Iowa State, but then I'm also part of the Center for Agricultural Law and Taxation. And my background is I'm an attorney and a CPA, so I try to use those tools that I have to help provide resources. And some of the links that you'll see on the screen are more in that context. So farm income tax, and we're still adding more to all of these different areas, but that links to different income tax questions and resources that a lot of times beginning farmers are interested in. How does this work when I'm starting to farm? We also link specifically to Iowa ag law issues that are particular. At the Center for Ag Law and Taxation, we keep up with those laws that pertain specifically to Iowa agriculture, so people can go there quickly and peruse, what's currently happening. And so all this to say, please visit our website and please take a look at the resources that we have. And also feel free to call if you have questions, because again, some of what informs the resources that we develop is the questions that you guys have. And so I spent too much time on this. So I am going to advance the slide and talk about AgLink. AgLink, that's what we're really here to talk about. So AgLink is our online platform, our being the Beginning Farmer Center online platform that is, like Martha was talking about with their program, it is a separate website, but we run it. And so AgLink is it's an online platform, and the intention is to connect new farmers with transitioning farmers and be able to start direct conversations. Always, I say the same things often. Talk to whoever you can about whatever opportunity you're looking for, because these individual matches are really what's important. But we know that in the world we live in today, that we need access in a different way so people can communicate. And that's what AgLink was designed for. So the conversations that start on AgLink, and I'm going to go through a few tips that we have, but these are conversations that are going to be happening directly between folks who are in the AgLink community. At the Beginning Farmer Center, we don't manage those communications. We help through the sign up, which we're going to talk about. But once you're on the site and you're part of that community, you're interacting directly with other people on that site in the way that that you wish to, and sharing the information that you want to. We can go ahead to the next slide. So this, I wanted to just walk through the basics of how you get involved with the AgLink program to be able to be on it as a member, as either a land seeker or a beginning farmer looking for opportunities, or as a landowner or an establishing farmer who's looking for a beginning farmer to start working with. The first step is you create an account, and this is right on the beginning farmer website. There is an AgLink link and you go right to it and it'll bring you to creating an account. Everything that we're going to talk about is free of charge. There's no charge for any service or anything that you would engage in with the AgLink program. It's really basic, just name, username, password. And then you submit it. And then we can go to the next slide. What happens is once you create a username and a password and you're able to access it, you're able to go into the AgLink program, and similar to some of what Martha was talking about before with questions, you're able to go in and tailor your profile essentially to what either you're looking for, what your experience is, what your what crops or livestock you're interested in growing or raising, or that you're doing now. And I didn't include all the questions because there's many of them, but this is just a sample of what you would do. We made it with a check the box or, click the link, click the button format. So it would be simple and that you could go through it without, taking a lot of time. We can go to the next slide. This is the same question or similar questions. The slide that I was just looking at were questions that a beginning farmer, an aspiring farmer, or a land seeker would be looking for. But as we know, we have the two types of individuals who are going to be on the site. And so if you're looking for a farm opportunity, you're going to continue to go through these screens and add in the different things that you're looking for. So again, row crops, whether you're organic, chemical free. And you can click all these different things on here to start building that profile of who you're all about. In both lands, again, beginning farmers and established farmers are going to have the opportunities to create these profiles. Okay, we can go ahead, one more screen. This is specifically for the beginning farmer and where you can start customizing what exactly that you're looking for. And some beginning farmers, may not exactly know or may be open to many different opportunities, which honestly is often that we will recommend when we get phone calls is, one of the things is to try to be flexible because as we know, there's not unlimited opportunities to access land. And so having some flexibility in how you're approaching it can be really helpful. Beginning farmers can choose as many different options as they want when they're creating their profile. There's also opportunities later on once you're a member of the site to essentially expand on all of this in a narrative format. So this isn't meant to be the only information that's put in, but it's meant to be so that when you're looking or searching through the site, you can get an idea of other people, an opportunity that might match up with what you're looking for. Okay, we can go ahead to the next slide. So once on the AgLink site, that's where the real good stuff starts. So you create an account, you go through the different check boxes, I'll call them, or filling out the fields of what you're interested in general, and that starts putting together your profile. But there's also, like I said, opportunities to expand on that and provide more information beyond what's just there. I didn't mention that once you submit an application, what happens is that comes to us at the Beginning Farmer Center, and we have to approve it before you have access. And when I say approve, I don't mean that we're going to limit people from being part of it. The reason we do that is because we want to try to at least ensure that we don't have scams that are trying to enter as potentially a member of the site and then access people in that way. And so when it says it has to be approved, everyone who is landowner or land seeker is going to be approved. We just do that step for a little bit of security. And so once you submit it, you'll get an email back directing you on how you can provide more information, how you can start communicating with other folks who are on the site. And some of those things that we advise is tell your story. So while all those basic criteria of what you're looking for are very important in helping, make matches, what's most important, I think, is telling your story. And so as you would when you're talking to folks at the, coffee shop or sharing information, try to do that on AgLink as well, because that's going to start, those real meaningful conversations. Share your goals, things that wouldn't be reflected in just how many acres you're looking for, but your really broader goals so that people can see what those are. Demonstrate, especially for beginning farmers, demonstrate your skills and strengths. Whatever they may be, whether they're in a management context or maybe it's in a production context with the things that you've already done. And if you don't have those already, demonstrate the things that you are wanting to learn or that you want to improve in. And in most of all, I mentioned this a little bit ago, be really flexible to open ideas. And that's on both sides for the aspiring farmers and land seekers, and also for the existing farmers as well, is just being flexible and open to new ideas. There's so many ways to farm. I love farming because it's so because there are all those opportunities, and having that openness to how an operation could be run or how someone might approach something, I think helps in trying to, expand the options of matches that could be available. We can go ahead one more screen. Okay, I went through that pretty quickly because I wanted to keep us on task and make sure we had plenty of time for questions. So if there's any questions for me or for any of the rest of us, please feel free to ask.
There is just one question in the chat, and maybe if we could like put our thoughts together and be succinct about it. But Matt asked, and we've kind of already chatted about this, but Matt asked, how do you get in contact with or market to people with land or make them aware of your land matching process? It seems to have a ton of people that are looking for land and not as many ready for that transition. So if each of you could, maybe I'll start because I have some maybe like very my family's dairy farming. I have two younger brothers planning to go back to the farm, and to make that financially work, I can share my personal story. So we have a neighbor that has rented to a different family for a number of years, and just as we talk about telling our story, a lot of times back in the old days, as my dad always says, is someone would drop over to the farm. Maybe we were milking cows or they knew we were there, and they would say, "Do you want to buy this piece of land from us?" And this really doesn't happen anymore. And so it kind of takes that initiative from that beginning farmer, someone looking for land, to go visit with your neighbors and really do tell that story. And so what my brother has been doing, he's back on the farm full time now. He is calling up neighbors and actually visiting with them personally, explaining that that's his intention, to be back on the farm full time and to make that work financially. He has his John Deere tech degree, so he's able to fix the tractors, and he grew up on the farm and all of these different things to tell his story. And so with that, you kind of have to keep that conversation going. The landowner is now looking at renting to my brother, not this coming year, but the following year, because they've already had a rental agreement with the current leasee that they have. But that's just a personal story of like that beginning farmer, or the person that's looking for land, really does have to go out of their way in today's day and age to approach that landowner, to really make that connection, because they're not going to think of you or come up to you if you're not presenting that, from the forefront. So that's my one piece of advice. I'll let the other two folks, Christiana and Martha, share.
I will jump in and just say, I think an important thing to note for everyone who's joining us today is that as Christiana and I talk, I have a greater number of landowners seeking beginning farmers, and Christiana seems to have a greater number of beginning farmers seeking landowners. So make sure you're using both sites. I have to say that having worked with a number of landowners at PFI, but also a number of different landowners organizations, that conservation tends to come to the forefront with those landowner groups. that we are seeing, I believe it is the majority of landholders in the United States, in Iowa, are women, the majority of non-operating landowners. So the groups that are out there to help those women who may not have a lot of experience farming are often conservation-minded groups. So reaching out to those groups might be a great strategy, but really, I really love Christiana's list there of like being open to different practices, being willing to work with that landowner to meet the goals and hopes that they have for their land. Because consistently, I think the themes that I'm seeing with those landowners is a lot of times they feel kind of stuck in a rental agreement that they don't love, but that they've inherited. And they know that they would like something different because they want to see some different practices on their land, but they're not quite sure how to go about doing it because they don't have the confidence or the comfort to be able to have those discussions or ask those things of their tenant. So I think that if you are someone who is willing to take that extra step with the landowner to help talk them through what you're doing, why you're doing it, the different types of practices that you have, that's huge. And I would also say that, you know, I was sort of gearing that list in the slide earlier towards landowners, but it is really true, and I think it mirrors what Christiana is saying, that figure out what your package is, right? Like create that flyer with your bio and with a picture that is like, this is who I am, these are my goals, this is what I'm doing. And maybe just go out and like share that with some retirement communities in Des Moines. And that might be the kind of place where you can encounter people who might be interested. So I said Des Moines, but maybe in your area would make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and specifically for our AgLink platform, I mean, we hope, you know, we continue to try to improve it and grow it. And the best way that that can work is the more people are on it and that are sharing really genuine information about what their goals are. And we do in situation, you know, things like we're doing today, try to share at least that is one tool that's out there. It's not the only tool. I mean, there's many different ways to go about it, but that is one tool that can be really helpful. And so we try to share that information in ways that we can with groups that would be talking with landowners, all different types of landowners, to know that this is an option to consider a conversation. And by listing on the site does not mean that a landowner's agreeing to sell their land or agreeing to do anything. It's really a way to start making those connections so that conversations that like you, Cynthia, I grew up on a dairy farm, and that's how it would happen. People knew we were milking at, you know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock, and that's when people would show up because they could catch us in the milking parlor. And that's when a lot of these discussions, you know, from small things to big things like land being available for sale, and you know, were had. And so try to recreate some of those organic conversations to the best that we can with things like an online platform, which is, you know, fitting for today.
Thank you both for sharing. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and share another poll for us as we close, and hope that you all, just 3 more questions. It should be available for you now, just to answer those questions, see how we did, see if you learned something, and let us know if you'd like us to connect with you to learn more or just ask more questions, maybe on a personal level. So feel free to go ahead and fill those out for us. And with that, I'll go ahead and just virtually wrap up our conversation here. We will share the recording with all the folks that were registered. So I have your emails and all of those sorts of things, and we'll share the slides and the recording with you all. So in case you want to listen again, and I'll share all the links as well, so you have all of those that I put in the chat during our conversation. So we really appreciate you all attending and hope you learned something new, and have a great rest of your Tuesday and the rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.